Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. I'm really excited to welcome Tom Hunt. Tom is the MP for Ipswich. He's also a member of the Education Select Committee. He's going to be talking to me about all of the fantastic work he's been doing as an MP for Ipswich, and also what his aspirations are for young people in the town as well. So we're going to bring on Tom to talk to us a little bit more about his work.
Hi.
Tom, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Yes. As I say earlier, a little bit tired, but other than that, I'm pretty good.
Fantastic. It's brilliant to welcome you on. The first question, have you got coffee or tea to hand?
I do. Yeah, I have a coffee here with my it's a Big Ben coffee mug.
It's very appropriate.
I can't do it. Yeah.
Second one. Talk to me about the hair. Where's it gone? Why have you done it?
I think it was triggered by. I have quite thick hair, and it grows pretty quickly. And like a lot of us, I wasn't able to go to the hairdressers. It was getting longer and longer, becoming increasingly uncomfortable. And I just thought this has got to. I can't wait until the hairdressers reopen. So I got some clippers ordered, and then I thought I'm going to get it all shaved off. And I thought, if I'm going to shave it off, I may as well try and raise some money at the same time. So I had been working with Age UK Suffolk. I think since the start of this crisis, I've been working quite closely with them on a different project called Talks of Tom, where I've been talking to individuals who've been self-isolating over the last few months. And I thought, they're a great charity, and like many other charities, they are doing perhaps more now than they ever have done, but at the same time their financial future is on not the strongest ground, because lots of the traditional fundraising activities, such as fundraising events they run and the shops that they run, haven't been able to raise money where they usually do. So I thought shaving my hair off would be good. And what happened is I had an objective of raising £2,000, and I got to about 1,200. And it was I was quite a way short of 2,000. I accepted that I wasn't going to hit 2,000, so I thought I'm just going to shave it off because it can't go on forever. I'm going to shave it off, and it got to a point where it's pretty short, and I thought it was sort of probably acceptable. I thought, okay, I can probably get away with that, and it's not short. But I thought, do I want to go the extra level, because then I might get some more donations. Yeah, people might think he's really gone for it. So I really went for it. I really went for it, and then one individual kindly donated £900, and then I shot up to 2,100, and then we had a few more, so we ended up. I think it was just shy of £2,400. So that was it was I chose Age UK Suffolk just because I've been working with them closely. I had to choose someone. There's loads and loads of charities, as you'll know, going above and beyond at the moment in Ipswich and in Suffolk. But I had to choose one. But there'll be others. I'm sure there'll be other ways in which I can help raise funds in the future. It might not be another head shave, but there might be another way in which I can do it.
You never know. Thank you for that. So, just in terms of your role as an MP, so you're a new MP to Ipswich in a new area. How are you finding settling in, and how are you finding Ipswich? I sort of lived in Ipswich now since late 2018. So I've for quite a while before the election. Ipswich is my home. It's where I feel at home. I love the town. It's one of the things I found most frustrating about the lockdown is that I haven't been able to get out and see as many people as I had been seeing. It's been difficult. I think probably. It's been about 6 months now that I've been a new MP. I think the first few months were absolutely crazy. You've got to get your head around so many different things. You've got to set up an office. The emails from constituents asking for help pretty much started on day one before I had any staff. So there was no period after the tiring election where I could sort of chill out for a few weeks and regroup. It was straight away onto actually the job at hand. So, and there's lots of different rules and procedures you have to learn in terms of speaking in the House of Commons, what a select committee is, which select committee do you want to be on, frankly, how you go about representing your constituents as effectively as possible in Parliament. So I was beginning to feel as though some of those things were sinking in, and then this happened, and then this has just been, it's been something else. It's been, we've had huge amounts of emails coming in, people who are in need of help, and I've done everything I can to help them. It's, because of the volume of emails I received, sometimes, I don't get back as quickly as I'd like to everyone. But we're not always able to get positive resolutions for everyone. But we have, on occasion, we've made interventions where me and my team have been able to support local businesses and individuals and find them support, and at the very least make representations to government. So there've been moments where it's been very rewarding, and I feeling like you're able to make a positive difference. But I think it's there isn't a single individual in this country who hasn't been impacted by what's happened over the last few months. Some have been more so than others, but I've been impacted in the same way that your life has been impacted, and other people as well. But it's so yeah. I mean, it's a very rewarding job. I enjoy it, but it is not. It's a tough job, and it's quite a stressful job. And if you're not disciplined, it can be hard to switch off. Because you're sort of, you go on Twitter and you've got sort of 20 notifications about something on a weekend, and you got your emails keep on coming in, and you get through a load of emails, and you think there's a bit of a sense of accomplishment, but then there's another load will come in, so you actually never get to a point where you feel like you're 110% on top of everything. It's sort of always
on your toes then.
It does, and it's a very varied role, and I do enjoy it. So I'm not going to sort of moan too much, but it is definitely full on.
And we've just got a question here. So what were your career ambitions whilst you were at school, and who were your role models as well when you were at school?
So school, I wasn't actually very academic at school initially, because I had some learning disabilities at school, which made it slightly more difficult, and I wasn't really known for doing well at, in classwork, etc. I was really a massive football fan when I was younger. I was a Newcastle United fan. I started supporting them in '96 when they were 10 points ahead at Christmas, and I thought, because my mum's a Geordie, I thought I had a good excuse to support the best team in England. Big mistake. It's all been downhill after that. And then so I think I probably wanted to be a football player. And then I was a go-karter. That's probably the sport that I participated in the most. I had my own go-kart. So I was sort of semi-professional go-karter, and so I think probably my role model was, I think it was probably David Coulthard, the Formula One driver, who and then it was after that it was I think he was my favourite Formula One driver. But I used to watch a lot of British touring cars and Formula One, and I wanted to be a professional motorsport racer. And then when I did my GCSEs. Went on to do my A-levels. Most of my A-levels were in science, bizarrely. So I wanted to become a dentist. When I was at sixth form, I got into my head that I wanted to be a dentist. I still don't really know why. I think it was just because a lot of people I knew wanted to be doctors, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be a doctor. I want to be a bit different. So it wasn't a particularly profound reason for wanting to be a dentist, but I thought that sounds good. But I just struggled with A-level chemistry. I thought this isn't for me, and I started really enjoying history at A-level. That's when I really started enjoying history, and I thought, I'm passionate about history, so I'm going to do history, and that's what I did it for undergraduate university. I did a history degree at the University of Manchester. Then I did a master's at Oxford in Russian and East European history. Because during my undergraduate, I found that I had a real interest in sort of the Soviet Union and particularly Poland. So I thought I want to have another year looking in more detail in those areas. So I did that. And then I sort of ended up standing for local council when I was 22, which is really, really, really young, because I thought, it's because I was originally thinking I might do a PhD. I thought, right, I might go and try and do a PhD at Cambridge. And then it'd be quite nice to be sort of a counsellor on the side. And then I ended up not deciding against doing the PhD. But I did still stand for election, and I won. I do actually look back at that period when I was sort of doing my master's thesis while standing for election at the same time, and I just thought it was extraordinary. Because like one week I'd be locked away in an office just reading about Polish history in the 18th century, and then I'd be on the ground talking about dog fouling and all manner of issues. That was in Ely in Cambridgeshire.
I find it quite easy to be able to then prioritise different programmes and activities that you've got going on as well.
When I was first elected as a councillor, I found it took a while to get going. I found it was, getting used to things like committee meetings and understanding what your role is as a councillor. But I was very, as a councillor, I was very focused on young people, because I felt that, I grew up in Ely in Cambridgeshire, which is a quaint cathedral city, beautiful city. Lots of people go there to visit as a result of that. But growing up, there was nothing for young people. There was no cinema. There was limited youth services and things like that. Everybody was having to go into Cambridge to do anything. And when I was a councillor, I had quite a youthful area that I represented. Lots of young families, many of whom were working in Cambridge, lived in Ely, and then were having to go back into Cambridge on the weekend to do anything, whether it was a cinema, whether it was going ice skating or going to a decent leisure centre. So I thought this isn't good. So I launched the campaign to get a cinema for Ely, and I started off, and there were some older people in Ely who didn't like the idea of a cinema because it was modern, and we've got this independent cinema, and they thought this having a cineworld would negatively impact the independent cinema. So they all started writing letters in the local paper, and I thought, well, this is not fair, because I know that people are supportive of the cinema generally, but there's a couple of very agitated people who are getting their voice heard. So I thought, how can I get the voice heard of younger people in this debate? So I remember I went to the local Starbucks, the local Cafe Nero, worked with some of the younger people who were working there, and we got the consultation forms out. We were putting them all around the coffee shops, and we ended up getting about 400 people writing in support of the cinema, from mostly younger people. And then we ended up getting the cinema delivered just after, around 2016, it was delivered, actually, the cinema. So that was but I really sort of went after youth issues, because it took me a while to understand my role as a councillor, but I thought I'm very passionate about making Ely a better place for young people to live in, so I prioritised that stream.
Fantastic, thank you, Tom. Before I come on to that question, I mean, as we're sort of talking about schools, I mean, so Ipswich, as you'll well know, is one of the worst affected areas in the UK for social mobility. And for any students watching, social mobility in essence is your background determining your future. And that we have, an increased proportion of disadvantaged young kids here and families as well. I mean, given the fact that you went to an independent school, I mean, how do you think that pupils in Ipswich who are disadvantaged can relate to yourself?
Well, I mean, I'm completely honest about the fact that I was lucky to have gone to the school that I went to. I was 12 years old. I had a reading and writing age of an 8-year-old, and I was, I hadn't really addressed the issues up until that point, because I was interested in, as I was saying earlier, I was interested in sport, and I thought I'd always manage to get away with it. I'd be told, I said, you've got to work a bit harder, and I never would do, and I'd still sort of just go on. But then they were like, no, Tom, you really do need to turn this around now, because you're a long way behind. They got out the years, like, you're 12, you're 8 there, and they said, you've got to turn it around in a matter of sort of about 6 months. So it was at that point that I buckled down. But, I mean, I would say, but I benefited at the school that I went from fantastic support. I had a wonderful learning support assistant, and I was taken out of French. So the school had the ability and the freedom to take me out of French. So when all of my classmates were doing French, I had my one-to-one sessions with a special educational needs learning assistant. And I over a long period of time, I began starting to turn it around. But I think probably the reason why I'm in politics more than anything else is opportunities for young people, and I think, as you may know, I'm particularly passionate about making sure those with special educational needs get the support they need to flourish. Yeah. And I'm acutely aware that I benefited from being at the school that I was at, and it's sad that perhaps I was one of a small number, perhaps, of children who had the level of disabilities that I had, who ended up getting the support I needed to turn it around. And the reality is, there's lots of young people who would have had exactly the same disabilities that I had, who unfortunately may not have got the support that they needed, and as a result of that, they weren't able to achieve their full potential. And that is something that should be a cause of concern for all of us, for all of those people who care about social justice. So I did go to an independent school, but rest assured that I'm acutely aware of the fact that I was able to turn around my problems at school, some of it was to do with my hard work and application, but I'm also aware that I was lucky enough to get the support that I needed to do that. And however hard some people work to try and overcome their disabilities, if they don't get decent support, then it's very, very hard for them to do so. I'm on the all-party parliamentary group for dyspraxia, which is what I've got, and dyslexia. I'm on the education select committee. I'm a bit of a broken record when it comes to trying to talk about supporting those special educational needs.
Yeah, but I mean, coming back to my original question though, how do you relate to them? Because disadvantage stretches further than dyslexia and dyspraxia, which I know is a huge toll on young people. But I mean, how do you relate specifically to the young people in Ipswich around their disadvantage, and what would you be able to do to raise their aspirations as well?
Well, I think ultimately it's about trying to meet as many people as possible, trying to talk to them, listen to them, understand what the issues are. I've visited the vast majority of schools in our town, right from East Ipswich, Southwest Ipswich, you name it, I've been there. I'm going to hopefully be visiting Coppleston again next week. So I think it's about speaking, it's about listening. We do have issues, as you say. We've got real issues with child poverty in Ipswich. We've seen recently a study published which says that relative poverty in Ipswich relative to other parts of the country has increased, and around and according to that relative measure, around a quarter of young people in Ipswich are living in a household which is defined as being in poverty. So that, and I have to say that. So it's. I mean, we're all unique, and we all have our different backgrounds and our different experiences. And because of that, there's always going to be people who it's easier to relate to naturally, and those who it's harder to relate to. But ultimately, my job as a member of Parliament is to represent every single individual in Ipswich, and we're all different. So all I can say is that to do that adequately, it takes a lot of hard work, and you've got to think about things from different people's perspectives, not just your own.
And I think you hit the nail on the head about going out there, listening to people, and just understanding it. I think that's, in terms of relating, that's a fantastic first step. But I'm going to come on to the question we've got posted. So, hi, my son's a support worker, and COVID-19 has shown just how vital this work is. Yet, it is a career field with low pay and few chances for respectability or progression. What will you do about this?
Well, I think it should be. I completely agree with that question, and why that individual has a view that they have, and I absolutely agree about the vital role that they're playing, perhaps more so now than ever, and I do think it needs to be viewed with the utmost respect in terms of, and it needs to be viewed as a career, and by that we need to have appropriate levels of pay, but also a pathway and a structure so you can progress properly, because we all some of the most vulnerable people in our society are dependent upon the work that your son does. But we need to just do something. We need to actually have some action here. We need some action here. I don't just want to be talking about it, but it has been raised with me by other constituents as well. That individual is not the only person to have raised that issue with me. I've actually tabled a written question on the matter already, but didn't get the action that necessarily what I would like. But I absolutely get that point, and I agree with you.
Brilliant. Thanks for whoever posted that. Sounds like it's definitely on Tom's agenda moving forward. Next question. So I'm 15 and an entrepreneur. I mean, firstly, that's fantastic. So far this year, my part-time hobby has profited £13,000. Are there any local grants as we want to employ local residents? Wow, that's the.
I'm 15 and an entrepreneur so far. Brilliant. That's fantastic. I'd like to learn more about that. Are any local grants as you want to employ local residents? I'm confident there may be. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure which one is the appropriate one.
I think I could answer that. I mean, have a look on our new Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership website, and in particular our Growth Hub. Do a little plug there. We will have grants potentially that would fit the criteria. If we don't, we'll definitely be able to refer it on to somebody else. But I think brilliant that there's a 15-year-old young person in Ipswich who's entrepreneur making brilliant profit. That's wonderful. And yeah, on the screen, where are we? That way, for our growth hub. Now, Tom, I just want to come back onto, I mean, in terms of you and your role as MP. I mean, what advice would you give to any young person who's considering to go into politics? And, you know, that's more than just being an MP, it's, you know, working at House of Commons, whatever that may be. What's your advice to them to pursue this as a career?
I think always go into it for the right reasons. Don't expect it to be easy. There's a view of politicians and members of parliament that, you know, they don't work particularly hard, and they're not really interested in their constituents, and they're not good people. And that hasn't been helped by things like the expenses scandal and everything else. But I have to say that by and large, this isn't right across, from Conservative MPs, Labour MPs, SNP MPs, Liberal Democrat MPs. I really can't think of a single MP I've come across who I've felt isn't working hard on behalf of their constituents, and really going the extra yard. So I'd say that if you are thinking about career in politics, just I think go into it for the right reasons. Don't expect it to be easy. It will be hard. Whether you're an MP or whether you're supporting an MP or whether you're a local councillor. And the other thing is, we do have independent councillors. We don't have any independent members of parliament. That's a different debate about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But at the moment, the reality is it's party politics. And the sad reality is that if you align yourself with a political party, whether it's Labour or Conservative, then almost immediately you've got a significant portion of those you represent who are immediately against you from day one. And I guess that's one of the things I try and tell myself. When I do get a lot of abuse, and you do get abuse if you're a member of parliament, you just have to try and think to yourself, look, don't take this too personally. It's just because I'm a Conservative, and often it is, and I sometimes it probably is to do with me specifically, but most of the time it's. But I'd also say that in terms of going into politics, particularly becoming a member of parliament, my view is that there's no right way of going about it. There's no conventional way of going about it, and I'm also of the view that we shouldn't necessarily pigeonhole people. We shouldn't say that you've got to do this, you've got to do that. There's no identical route to becoming an MP. Some people have had political backgrounds before they became an MP. I am one of those individuals. I think there's certain advantages to that, but I think there's certain disadvantages to that if you're not acutely aware that there could be disadvantages to that. I think some people have nothing to do with politics and then they become an MP. There are advantages to that because they see things in a different way. But then sometimes there are disadvantages to that because they often don't know what the role involves. We have seen a few MPs who have, hadn't had a political background become an MP, and then they've been sort of surprised what the role involved, hadn't expected it to be like that, and then they've only stood for sort of one term and they've gone. But then you have a lot of career politicians who've had their whole life in politics who don't really understand the world outside politics, and they don't understand what the world outside of Westminster bubble. So I don't think that's helpful either. So I think the reality is that there's no one person who shouldn't think about becoming a member of parliament. Whatever you're doing, if you're passionate about things and you want to go in to make a positive difference, then it doesn't matter what you're doing. I can't really think of a single job that you're doing that I'd say, well, that makes it inappropriate for you to want to go into become an MP. Yeah. I think it's.
I think, and you mentioned at the start, it's having those right intentions to begin with, and then that will carry you into that career. Talking about politicians as well. Do you think people can still be inspired by politicians? And as sort of a next part to that, and if so, how do you inspire people aside from coming on Careers and Coffee, of course?
Well, I think politicians they need to still inspire people. I think that. But having said that, I'm not really. If you actually pin me down and said which politicians inspired me, I think Winston Churchill probably did. I think he was I think the grit and determination he showed in not surrendering to the Nazis, fighting on. I think that is an inspirational story. I think the politicians who I think right from left to right who have demonstrated real mental resolve and have sometimes taken unpopular decisions in the short term because they'd known them to be right in the long term, and they'd had the mental strength and character to do that. Those sorts of individuals, who I think
any living politicians that you would see as inspirational, aside from Winston Churchill,
Well, I mean, I mean, I know he's got his detractors, but I am a supporter of the current Prime Minister. But I wouldn't necessarily say I find him inspirational. Because I think he's been Prime Minister for sort of a short spell of time. He's been Prime Minister now for about 8 or 9 months. If he delivers everything he said he wants to deliver in 10 years' time, and he's sort of leveled up the country, and we've got way better transport infrastructure. And he's delivered on everything he said, then I think at that stage I could maybe use the term that he's inspirational. But I think at this stage, I think it's early days for me to say that.
Do you see yourself as inspirational?
I really don't think. I don't. No, not really. No. I mean, I as far as I'm concerned, I've got a job. I was elected by the people of Ipswich to represent them in Parliament. I was very clear about what my objectives and my priorities would be as the MP. My job is to, as far away as possible, deliver upon those objectives and work incredibly hard in looking to deliver those objectives, which are about making Ipswich a better place to live for my constituents. And then in addition to that, when I'm approached directly by constituents about problems, trying to help them out in the best way that I can. But hopefully if I work hard over a long period of time, and a good number of my constituents will look at me and think he's an effective MP. He listens to his constituents. He works hard on behalf of his constituents. He might not have delivered everything he set out to deliver, but he's delivered some stuff, and he's tried hard on the other stuff he hasn't delivered. And then the other thing is that I think that as a member of Parliament, I do have views. I have quite strong views on many different issues. And I think that maybe it could be that people look at me and hear what I'm saying, and I think, well, I agreed with Tom on that. I didn't agree with him on that. I agree with him on that. But at least maybe they could think that at least I've got views, because I've got this weekly column I've got for Ipswich Star, and I always try and provoke a debate. I want to try and have a proper, and I want to be honest about what my views are, and not because I remember sort of growing up, I'm not going to mention any names, but I'd sometimes see columns and pieces by members of Parliament, and it would just be waffle. It wouldn't say anything. It would just be it'd be so sanitized. It wouldn't, it'd just be what does that even say? It'd be like, and when I'm in the House of Commons, when I get questions, when I get drawn to ask questions of Secretaries of State, Prime Minister, I always think about my constituency, and I think about what would people in my constituency want me to do on their behalf and to ask on their behalf. Because I always remember that I used an analogy about a cloak hanger when in my first few weeks as an MP, and as a member of Parliament for Ipswich, I get a cloak hanger in the members. There's a members' cloakroom, and it's got Ipswich by the cloak hanger, and I always remember that that's the Ipswich cloak hanger. It's not my cloak hanger. And that my coat only hangs on that for as long as the people of Ipswich want it to be hung on. It doesn't have a name on it. I think I'm inspirational. I think that it'd be a hell of a person who said that they were. I think
I've got plenty of these planned. Well, I'll find one soon. But I'm going to briefly come on to the next.
But I would say maybe the one thing would be overcoming with learning disabilities. I think that's a one thing that I'm quite proud of. And again, I was lucky to get the support that I got. But I think if somebody, particularly somebody with special educational needs, like what I had, is really struggling at school, and maybe look at me and see that eventually I did overcome those difficulties to an extent. I still live with them. Then hopefully that can inspire some people who had the same disabilities that I had. So I think that's probably the one example that I'd use where perhaps somebody could see me as a positive role model.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Tom. Right, next question. So many young people, and likely older people too, are not aware of all the different things that government and local authorities are involved in. How can we inspire people to explore this?
So could you repeat the question? Sorry, I just had a bit of my.
Yeah. So many young people, and likely older people too, are not aware of all the different things government and local authorities are involved in. How can we inspire people to explore this as well?
I think it's the way that we can motivate people to want to explore it is to communicate to people that they can actually make a difference. By what's going on, what local government are doing, what national government are doing. These are things that can also be influenced by you.
by writing to your representative, whether it's your local councillor, your member of parliament, whether it's signing a petition that can trigger a debate in parliament. You as a citizen of this country are able to influence it. I think that how can we? I think so often local councils, I've been involved in local government as well as central government, and it can all seem very remote, bureaucratic, not interesting, not engaging. So I think it's just about trying to make it more interesting and engaging.
Excellent, thank you. And I think for any young person who's considering that, speak to them, get some work experience. Local authorities, governments, us as the LET, we're very keen to be able to support that. I'll come back to that question. Actually, no, we'll get to that one. So we have a talented and fast-growing creative sector here in Ipswich. Are there any plans to support young people entering these sectors?
I had a meeting with the sort of creative sector in Ipswich. It was I think it was about 3 weeks before, or before that sort of thing wouldn't have been possible. So I did have a meeting with the creative sector in Ipswich, and we've obviously got Dance East, which is on the waterfront, which is a fantastic facility that we're incredibly lucky to have in Ipswich. And that Dance East is a fantastic way in which those creative young people in Ipswich can get opportunities to fulfil their dreams. So I think Dance East is probably the most sort of vivid example of what opportunities there are in the creative sector for young people.
Fantastic, cheers, Tom. And I mean, at this moment in time, there's a lot of young people who are about to embark upon their next pathway, whatever that may be, and it's already an incredibly challenging time for them to do that, even more so in a pandemic. What's your advice to them who is about to embark on that? What's your advice?
It is going to be a difficult time, particularly if you're leaving school at the moment, or leaving university at the moment, or college at the moment. It's going to be hard. It's really going to be hard. But I just say stay positive, and just it might be that you have to do a job. You get a job which might not be your dream job, but persevere. Keep on reaching for that thing you really want, but just stay positive. And there will be opportunities out there. And I think that this is going to be hard for the next few months, the next year, couple of years, because of the economic impact that COVID-19 has had, and we've yet to really see that. We haven't, because I think this could well be the case that it gets worse before it gets better. But I'd say that there still are opportunities out there, and I think particularly in our area as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And well, my last question, I don't know about anyone else. What do you want your legacy as MP for Ipswich to be?
I think, what do I want my legacy to be? I would like my legacy to be opportunities for young people, and having done something very meaningful in that space. And it's not just about special educational needs and making things better for kids with special educational needs, but doing something in that space, which means that, and being involved in things in that space, working with partners in that area to try and improve the life chances for young people in the town that I have the honour of representing.
Brilliant. And I suppose, in terms of the work that I suppose myself and colleagues are doing with the Careers and Enterprise Company, Anglia Enterprise Adviser Network, I think that is a huge initiative to be able to bridge the gap between education and business, especially in your constituency as well. I think trying to get, I think it's absolutely right, and I think trying to get to a place where there's very much an ecosystem when it comes to schools, local businesses, the university, the college, so they're all talking to each other in a synced up way, because ultimately there are good opportunities in the area. There's skills that are needed in good, high-paid, fulfilling jobs in the area, and I essentially want as many young people in my constituency to take advantage of those opportunities and to have the opportunities to do so. So I am very supportive of apprenticeships, degree apprenticeships, and the University of Suffolk has a very important role to play there. It's already doing a lot, could do more, and I think it's very exciting what we can all achieve. Fantastic. And last live question. So can you explain what an Education Select Committee is, and also what a member is involved in that?
So what the select committees in general, they are composed of members of Parliament,
So there's 650 members of parliament. Each select committee has about 10 to 11 members of parliament on that committee. The MPs collectively vote for the members of parliament that they would like to be on each committee. So I had to get other MPs to elect me onto the Education Select Committee in the first place. And then when you're on that committee, it's a job of that select committee. It's the way in which Parliament and MPs hold to account the relevant department. So the role of the Education Select Committee is essentially Parliament's way of holding to account not just the Department for Education, but also Ofsted, Ofcal, Office of Students, etc. So it's a way in which we can scrutinise government. So we have accountability sessions. We've had the Secretary of State for Education meet us. We had 2 hours grilling him. We've had other education ministers in. We've had the Children's Commissioner in recently. We've had people from the Office of Students, the Chief Inspector from Ofsted. And then we do these accountability sessions, but we've also right now we're doing a report on the impact of COVID-19 on education, and we've on lots of different levels. We've looked at vulnerable children, how they've been impacted. We've looked at the debate around school closures and whether they should be reopened. We've looked at the impact from the higher education sector. So right across, we look at, and also the children's care system as well. We look at that area as well. So we meet every week. I meet usually on a Wednesday morning, and we get papers. I read up on it. I prepare. And then we have 2 hours, and usually on Parliament TV, where we ask questions of different witnesses, and we publish reports, which can be critical of government if necessary, and also, but we are so House of Commons select committees are a little bit different from committees in, say, like the USA, where the committees are actually involved in making laws, whereas the House of Commons select committees aren't involved in directly making laws. They're more about accountability.
Yeah, and it must be fairly difficult to have to hold to account a government that helped you get elected in the first place. No, I mean that takes a fair bit of resilience.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I sort of touched upon it earlier. Like we do live in a democracy where it's party politics, and whether we like it or not, if you want to be a member of Parliament, then you sort of have to align with one of the political parties. It doesn't mean you agree with everything they do. You basically look at the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, and they're all quite broad in themselves. Like within the Labour Party, you have a range of different views. The Conservative Party have a range of different views, but you basically have to say, broadly speaking, which option most closely aligns with your views and values. So I made that decision, but it does not mean by any stretch of imagination that I'm going to agree with absolutely everything a Conservative government does. There's areas where I think it could be, getting it wrong, and where it needs a bit of a push in a certain direction. One example recently would have been the issue about school meal vouchers, and I think that they should be extended over the summer. And at the moment, the government is saying that they don't feel like they're able to do that, but I hope they might be able to move on that fairly soon. Another issue is the proposed orthopaedic centre in Colchester, which the government seems to be supporting at the moment, but I don't think is the best thing to do for my constituents. So I am a Conservative member of Parliament, but my priority is Ipswich. It's my constituents, and there will be occasions over the next 3 or 4 years where I may not always vote with my government. I could go a different way. Because of it's got to be what's in the best interest of my constituents. So I'm not going to hold back from questioning the Secretary of State for Education when he comes into and that's one of the things about the select committee. We take our responsibility very seriously, and actually we do cooperate cross party. There's Labour MPs on it, there's Conservative MPs on it. We work together as a collective, and we hold the government to account. And to an extent, sometimes a bit of party politics creeps into the committee, but it's not often the case, and I think that's important.
No, I think that's fantastic. Well, Tom, I'm going to end it there because I'm sure you get asked enough questions during the week anyway. But I mean, thank you so much for coming on to Careers in Coffee. It's been an absolute delight. Have you got any final thoughts you'd like to share with students or residents in Ipswich, businesses, etc.?
I'd say I've had a huge number of businesses and young people contact me over the last few months. But if there's anything I can help you with, just drop me an email, tom.hunt.mp@parliament.uk. Drop me an email if there's any views you have, that you express them to me, and I'll listen, and I'll hopefully be able to do something about it. So please get in contact with me. This is really challenging times for everyone at the moment, but I just say, try and stay positive as much as possible, because hopefully we're not too far away from things going not back to normal, but closer to a kind of normal. certainly closer than the lockdown we've all been through.
Yeah, I'm praying for the derby back down the Woolpack. Look, Tom, thank you.
I'm a greyhound. I like. I'm a big supporter of the Woolpack, but the greyhound's my actual local. But I did mention the Woolpack actually recently. I went for a walk in Christchurch Park, and I had an absolute craving for a cider at Woolpack, and almost forgot for a moment what the times we're living in, and it wasn't open. But they were doing takeaway on there. They're doing takeaway, yeah.
They got takeaways. So
got takeaway, yeah.
Pubs aside, Tom, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers. So, folks, that was Tom Hunt, MP for Ipswich, talking about his role, opportunities for young people, and talking about his constituency, Ipswich. So, huge thanks to Tom for coming on to Careers and Coffee. You can see all of the details below, how to get in touch with Tom, his website, all of those details, all in the description below. So, Tom's session closes our Careers and Coffee for this week. Next week, I'll be absolutely excited to welcome Ben Miller and Doug Field onto Careers and Coffee. So Ben is one of our enterprise advisors based in Ipswich, absolute visionary when it comes to technology in the digital and creative sector. And on Thursday, we have Doug Field, who's the Joint Chief Executive of East of England Co-op and the Chairman of our organisation, Anglia Enterprise. So tune in next Tuesday and Thursday to hear from Ben and Doug talking to us about skills, young people and the economy as well. Thanks.